Welcome to Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
With tariffs, EV tax credits set to expire, and production strategies in flux, the retail automotive landscape is anything but static. Here to help us make sense of where the market is headed is someone who has his finger on the pulse of the industry, and I'm talking about the auto industry, Mr. Joe McCabe, President and CEO of AutoForecast Solutions. Thank you so much, Joe, for visiting us once again here at CBT News. Whenever you're on, we get a ton of views, so thank you so much for sharing your insights with us and our audience. So let's start with tariffs. What's your take on how the tariffs could impact the automakers and suppliers out there?
First of all, Jim, thanks again. It's a great opportunity to always talk to you about this. Look, it's volatile. It's keeping us up 24/7 because the constant movement on it and decision changes and things like that are definitely in flux every single day. Tariffs will have an impact. The idea here is how much of an impact. When you talk about imported vehicles and it's marquee branded products, they have to make a decision of, do they pass it on to the consumer or do they absorb it? If it's more of a cost-conscious vehicle, a lot of times they can't pass it on to consumer because it then makes their product less competitive. Let's say you're importing a lower-cost Volkswagen versus a higher priced Mercedes-Benz. So it's sort of a snowflake event depending on the things you're looking at. What we though also focus on is the supplier community. So so many people are focused on what the VIN says and where the car is built and where the car is being sold and product focus, but the idea is if you don't take a hard look at the hundreds of suppliers that go in to build the car and their need for a globally integrated supply chain for materials and parts and things like that, it sort of gets lost sight in the conversation. And without the suppliers, you don't have the cars.
That's right. What might OEMs adjust in sourcing and manufacturing or pricing strategies in response to all this?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not Sim City. We can't just pick a plant out of a foreign country and drop it here and all of a sudden be up and running in 48 hours. You're talking months to just move the tooling. And a lot of automotive manufacturers are not trying to be knee-jerk reaction. They're not trying to say today's decision is going to affect everything I'm moving in the future. They know the automotive space is glacial in speed. They know that they're currently right now trying to develop products that won't start for 3 years from today. And there might be a different political climate at that point. But they're keeping their finger on the pulse in terms of what do we need to do to sort of mitigate the short-term pain. And that, yes, is looking at secondary and tertiary supply chains that are within low tariffed, if not no tariffed countries. And also, how do you bring it back in the United States? If you want to actually plant your flag and you're not in the United States in North America right now, it'd be a fool's errand, unfortunately, to drop into Canada and Mexico, even though they're phenomenally important to the automotive community right now. You're going to plant your flag in the United States. So they're looking at to mitigate some of that pain. If it's a USMCA compliant vehicle, only a portion of the vehicle that is non-USMCA compliant, meaning not following with the rules of that right now, will be tariffed. So it's not 100% on that. There'll be pain. But we're not seeing the pain yet. We're hearing the conversation, but we're not seeing a ripple to the consumers just quite yet.
Yeah, very interesting. So EV tax credits are set to expire. How do you think that will shape the consumer demand and production plans? Obviously, we saw a bump in late March, early April when the deadline for tariffs was coming about, and the president was saying, hey, we're going to make this move. All of a sudden in retail automotive, we saw this huge increase in sales because of the fear of we're going to be paying more for our cars. Let's get in there. You think we'll see the same thing with this EV tax credit that's ending in September?
It's an interesting dilemma. When the EV tax credit out, we actually saw it as a way for the manufacturers to raise their prices because then the consumer would get that as a tax benefit. So it was somewhat of a zero-sum game that people weren't paying attention to that we saw. It'd be absolute mistake for a manufacturer to go, well, we lost this $7,500 credit, so we're all of a sudden going to raise our prices and adjust. The prices are the prices. Now we have to find the manufacturer to get smart about how they're going to absorb that, whether they're going to try to have their supplier community try to weather some of the pain, or they're going to absorb it for themselves. The mass movers, I said, is for a very long time. The early adopters have adopted. It's not that people going, oh, now the credit's gone. Yes, you'll see a little bit of a blip because people will see that as an opportunity, but the tax credit was good in the beginning, and it just didn't push the needle. Once that goes away, you're going to see it drop. It's more the tax credit is only one part of the story. Once you can tell the manufacturers that they are no longer going to be penalized based on carbon credits, and you can adjust the EPA rules to say you no longer have to build a product that consumers aren't consuming. That is where the change is really going to occur. And we're really paying attention to the manufacturer to have these evolutionary platforms that on the same production line, they can build a BEV, they can build a plug-in hybrid, a Chev, extended range, and an ICE. So they could be more in tune to the demand cycle rather than saying, I'm 100% committed to something that's a pure BEV and I'm in trouble. So you're going to see a lot of manufacturers recalibrate their powertrain strategies and get innovative. They're not going to move away from electrification, but they're going to dial back the BEVs, and they're going to be more in the hybrid space until the BEVs can actually get some traction back. So it's not just the credit, it's the absolute ripple effect down to how it's going to hit the wallet of the manufacturer and therefore ripple to shareholder value.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds for sure. When you look at the remainder of 2025, what are the biggest economic or regulatory forces that dealers and automakers need to be preparing for? I mean, you mentioned a couple of them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the tariffs I got to pay attention to. USMCA potentially being rewritten in 2026, putting more emphasis on U.S. built product and unfortunately penalizing Canada and Mexico. We hope that's not the case. Right now Canada and Mexico are last on the list. Canada got an uptick on tariffs because the Trump isn't happy about the language they're using. But again, I think that greater minds will prevail at the end of the day, and we'll come to some sort of agreement with our countries at that point. Really looking at mitigating the risk, looking at the idea of how much you're importing. And, the volatility in the conversation really just says, look, if you want to get rid of volatility, then just build the United States. That's the end game here.
Right.
This every day changing the conversation is really about, look, just get out of your own way, build here. And again, not an overnight task to complete, but you will see more and more production coming to the United States as a result.
Sure. And then that concept has been working well for companies like Kia and Subaru and Hyundai and Nissan and Toyota for many years. I mean, it's not new to the country that we're going to have foreign nameplates being built right on American soil by American workers, right? So.
Right. Yeah, 100% correct. And you got to look at this. That is, again, mitigating the risk right this second. The manufacturers know that they have to still push their metal. Now, from a dealership perspective, maybe I don't have to force the dealer to take my electrified vehicle to get a high volume vehicle anymore, which was the case in the last couple of years. To push the metal, the dealers were forced to take the Lightnings of the world and things like that to say, look, if you want to push the Broncos, then you're going to have to take some Lightnings.
Yeah.
And they still in the lots, unfortunately. So if you change the rules about the CAFE requirements and the CO2 requirements, you're going to see dealers hopefully getting more products that the metal they're going to be able to move.
That's right.
And not sit on something that's not going to be a mover.
That's right. And all of this, I think, leads to a pretty robust and strong used car market, right? The notion that, somebody can bypass tariffs altogether and pick up a late model used car, whether it be a year or 2 or 3 years old. And the quality of these vehicles, regardless of the brand, has just been incredible over the last 10 or 15 years with the technologies, that blow away most people. Most people don't even use most of the technology in their vehicle, but it seems to me that the used car market will just explode here over the course of the next year or two, right?
Yeah, we see it for a couple of reasons. Number one, a lot of people we talk about BEVs, 60% of BEVs are leased right now because people are not committed to the long-term commitment of it, right? So all of a sudden, 3 years from now, you're going to have a glut of really high-quality battery electric vehicles in the used car market, just as the manufacturers are trying to recalibrate and say, well, we need a $45,000 or $30,000 option to get people re-energized in this space. That's going to be very difficult because Tesla's proved these batteries are lasting. You're talking about very, very few batteries on Teslas have died in the 15 years they've been around. So there is a life cycle side of that. The used car market, you also think about that more over-the-air updates are a secondary revenue model for the vehicle manufacturers. Before it was the transaction price of the vehicle, and they'd get you on service and F&I and things of that nature. Now, if I have an over-the-air updates, I have OnStar, I have the ability to give you things on the Netflix model of $10 a month, either or taking my ads away from you. You are now seeing that a used car market becomes a secondary revenue stream for the GMs and Fords and Stellantis and BMWs of the world, where in the past they weren't. So it's not a bad thing that people are going to get back in the BEVs, and it still would improve the shareholder value if the major manufacturers get their act in line, how they can sort of be in the wallets of the consumers for an extended period of time after the primary life cycle of their vehicle.
Yeah, for sure. What's your outlook for vehicle pricing and inventory management as we head toward the fourth quarter?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, you got to really look at the affordability side. People are going to be running in sort of panic mode, and dealers are going to be saying the tariffs are going to be input, there. So therefore, get your product now before you're going to be tariff impacted.
Yeah.
But again, if you look at a vehicle and all of a sudden say we're going to be moving it up 5-10%, that consumer is going to take it off its list. There's plenty of competition that are going to be, the tariff will be mitigated. And so you're going to have to see some prices that are going to have to hold steady. There's not going to be, inventories are still relatively high, and they have to move this metal so they can make room for the next set of vehicles that are coming on board.
Sure.
Look, we are seeing a lot of vehicle program timing get extended. They're finding out that why should we invest in a new program when we're making money on ones today? So a lot of times a 5-year vehicle program is now a 7-year vehicle program. So they might get a little bit of refresh here and there, but they're going to keep around because it's paying for itself. And that allows them to delay any kind of new cool stuff that might be coming down the pike.
Right.
So we are seeing that shift in the strategy. But this idea of raising prices for the end of the year is not going to be, as you said, used car markets are coming up. There's a lot of good product out there.
Yep.
It's going to be a delicate balance.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And of course, affordability is at the forefront of every consumer, dealer, and OEM's mind right now, right? I mean, we're all challenged in this area with the average payment being north of $750 a car, I believe, right now, and a new vehicle being almost $49,000 in price. Something's got to give here. I mean, this is not sustainable, in my humble opinion, right?
Yep, that's correct. Look, vehicles are lasting longer. The idea there is, as a U.S. consumer, we always want the new shiny object, but you're right. Rates need to come down. It has to be more attractive for people to want to get out of their current vehicle and move to a new vehicle.
Yeah.
And, residual rates are going to be iffy, knowing that there's a powertrain shift coming in, and knowing that, maybe in the next few years, we won't have a Republican White House anymore. And maybe all of a sudden now we're dialing it back and coming back 180 degrees to a more environmental conscious. So there's a lot of moving parts that the manufacturers have to push the metal as fast as possible now, because all the volatility. I mean, it's just insane.
It really is. Last and not least, your comments on Elon Musk and Tesla. We saw where the board wanted to give him a $29 billion paycheck or raise, which most people can't even, I can't even get my head around, but it's a heck of a raise, right? But talk to me about that. What's your take? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear Elon Musk and Tesla in terms of its future?
He's going to be fine, right? I mean, we've always said, Tesla's a unicorn. The idea here is they're going to have 9 nameplates at the end of the decade all over the world. What manufacturer, successful manufacturer, profitable manufacturer, can say we only have 9 nameplates on a global basis? They can pull it off. Yeah. The Tesla buyer is they buy into the ecosystem of Tesla, just like Apple buyers buy into the Apple ecosystem. Look, has he had to weather some storms? Yes, but he's got a lot of fingers, a lot of pies. He's got Mars and Starlink and things like that. Sure. He's going to be. I'm not too worried about Elon's success going forward. I think the new Model Y coming out, the baby Model Y, that's going to be more affordable, is going to try to reignite that market.
Yeah.
But you also have to look at the backdoor China story with that. Again, Tesla's the only foreign car manufacturer that was allowed to walk into China without a Chinese partnership. So I think we're going to be looking back at these times going, we should have saw the writing on the wall. There's some backdoor dealings going on that is going to make him survive in perpetuity.
Yeah.
Whether he's going to be friends with Trump or they're going to duke it out. That's nice little stories on the side, but he's going to be I think Tesla's going to be just fine.
Yeah, you do. Tesla's going to make the cut.
2 to 3 million units a year. That's all he needs. He doesn't have to do 20 million units a year. He just has to fill his plants all over the world and and he can adjust his prices on the fly, whatever he wants to. So it's a model that no one else can repeat right this second. He had timing behind his on his side, and a great product. And so I think that we might be in a little bit of a trough on them, but or a little bit of a valley, but there's some peaks on the way for him.
Yeah, for sure. Joe McCabe, President and CEO of AutoForecast Solutions. Thank you so much for joining us. We love when you come into CBT News. As I said, our viewers get a lot out of your visit with us, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. Great time as always.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.